Hello everyone, this is phanidhiraj. Welcome to Perseverance IAS. This is our daily editorial analysis for 3rd September 2021. If you are new here, please do subscribe to the channel. We are doing good content on a day-to-day basis for competitive examinations. So today is an interesting topic because we are choosing two editorials from two different dates. Yesterday there was an editorial in the Indian Express, right, that talks about the Unsc resolution in United Nations Security Council in regards to Taliban. On today's editorial in the Hindu, there is also an article that talks about that UNSC resolution. So I thought it would be good to club and combine both of those editorials. One from the Indian Express from yesterday's newspaper and one from today in Hindu newspaper. First we'll be discussing about the one from Indian Express, a line to Kabul. So you might have already heard about the United Nations Security Council resolution on Afghanistan. Now this resolution was adopted on the last day of India's month-long presidency, right? August was the month where India was the president of United Nations Security Council. Now, but what was the outcome of that resolution? We clearly saw a rift between the permanent 5 countries and other countries in the United Nations Security Council. What does that mean? It means this is new in geopolitics of Asia since the Taliban took over Afghanistan. See, the rift is new. So to refresh your mind, both Russia and China abstained from the resolution voting, and when India brought in the resolution, United States, France, United Kingdom and 10 non-permanent members, the other non-permanent members, voted for the resolution, right? So why did Russia and China abstain from voting on that resolution? Now let us first look at Russia. Since the surrender of US to Afghanistan to Taliban, it is no other word for it, it is an abject surrender. Russia, forgetting its deep wounds that happened in Afghanistan, is trying to take the lead role in this region, right? Russia wants to lead the geopolitics in Asia. That is why they were trying to take charge of the crisis in Afghanistan. So, despite having a bad track record with Pakistan, remember, Soviet Union was defeated by Mujahideen with the weapons support from Afghanistan, from America, that is CIA specifically, and training from Pakistan. The Mujahideen got arms, ammunition, training from Pakistan. Despite their very bad relationship, Russia established a communication channel with Pakistan. They tried to repair relation with Pakistan. As a result of it, they have a good relation right now because China is involved in the equation, but nonetheless, despite forgetting the old wounds, both Russia and Pakistan have a new relationship. They are trying to repair, they are trying to work on, meaning engage with each other. On the other hand, they opened a communication channel with Taliban. Remember, after Pakistan, China, Russia was the next country in line to open negotiations with Taliban. They started actively engaging with these groups in Afghanistan once the Trump administration made its intent clear of withdrawal by saying that we are going to negotiate a peace deal with Taliban. Right? Now, Russia has been very vocal and has been trying to get a larger piece of pie in Afghanistan. So those are the interests of Russia in Afghanistan. They were trying to fill the vacuum. They are trying to take up the lead in Asia. Not only that, they have communicated. They have started communicating with Taliban, and they have started repairing their relation with Pakistan because they are trying to get a larger role in post-US Afghanistan. Now let us look at from the Beijing perspective, that is the Chinese perspective. Right? Beijing shares a very close and warm relation with Pakistan, and more recently the proximity between Russia and Beijing had gone up significantly, more to the discomfort of a country, India. Right? What Beijing hopes out of its involvement with Taliban or engagement with Taliban in Afghanistan, like Russia, it also wants to fill the vacuum left behind the United States. That is why you see they wanted to engage with both non-state actors and state actors, right? They want to engage with Taliban. If they want to engage with Taliban in the future in a free manner that is advantageous to them, they shouldn't be constrained by an UNSC resolution. Minding, the UNSC resolutions are in binding. If tomorrow Russia or China goes against the USC resolutions and engage with Taliban, they might attract sanctions from UNSC. See, they can veto that, that's a different story, but nonetheless there is a consequence where UNSC members would try to sanction these countries. So why they essentially abstained from voting on the resolution was they want to keep their options open. See, let us say the resolution was very strict. It meant that it designated Taliban a terrorist organization. If China and Russia voted in that, if they voted yes, it meant that they no longer cannot engage with Taliban like other countries in the world who are bounded by the UNSC resolution. But that goes against their interest. Their interest is individually they want to occupy the vacuum left by the US. They want to be the leaders of Asia. In the case of Beijing, that is China, they want to be the leader of whole world, dethroning America. Now, this is the idea, this is the reason why both the countries abstained from voting on the UNSC resolution. They wanted to keep their communication channels open, they wanted to keep their options open, and they did not want to be bound or restricted or constrained by a resolution. Now let us discuss a bit about UNSC resolution, right? What were the demands of the UNSC resolution? See, the resolution did not identify Taliban as the de facto ruler of Afghanistan. Short of it, everything was said and done in that resolution. Okay? So, the resolution demanded that Afghan territory not to be used by terrorists for attack against any other countries. That was one of the significant resolutions, and that is from our side. We negotiated for it and we got it done, because what is the biggest worry for us? Our biggest worry is Pakistan, China, or any other country in future using Taliban as a proxy, using Afghanistan as a staging base, and planning and carrying out attacks in India from Afghanistan, right? Terror threats emanating from Afghanistan are a big concern for India. So that is that. That is why we negotiated for it and we got that wording, that sentence inside the resolution. Now let us look at the regional grouping. The regional grouping is very complicated. First, Russia, China, Pakistan had created the trio cooperation on Afghanistan. They forgot, or they did not forget, they deliberately left out India. Right? America, Tajikistan, Pakistan, Afghanistan created a quad that talks about Afghanistan, but again India was not involved. See, any grouping that talks about Afghanistan or regional security or geopolitics in the region excluded India. So the Triaco agreement is also one such grouping that left India out, And we are going to see that relation, that Ryoka grouping, their cooperation on Afghanistan becoming more and more clear at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Dashbian. That is where they are going to make their intentions very clear. So we have to be very careful and open about what these three countries are going to say in regards to Afghanistan and how they want or intend to cooperate in future in regards to Afghanistan. Now India, in a big readjustment, right, by conforming itself to the new reality, for the first time in a big change in its stance, publicly acknowledged engagement with Taliban representative, right, on the same day the UNSC resolution was adopted. What happened in a statement? We said that on the request of Taliban, our embassy ambassador in Doha, Qatar, went and met the political representation of Taliban in Doha, and our discussion meeting was focused on three things. One, safety, security and early return of Indian nationals stranded in Afghanistan. Second, the travel of Afghan nationals, especially religious minorities, if they want to wish to travel to India, they shouldn't be stopped. And primary and most important of all, they asked, or we expressed, that Taliban should not allow Afghanistan to be used as its base to carry out to carry out attacks in India. See, this was our statement. As far as what Taliban said, Taliban remained silent. Nothing has been said as of yet. At various points of time, whenever the opportunity was available, Taliban has been calling for continuation of Afghanistan's friendly ties with India. They have asked us to come back and build and carry out economic activity, but they didn't want to engage on a third country. They were raising our economic, historic and cultural linkages and saying that we are friends. You should come and invest in Afghanistan. You should come and carry out your humanitarian aid. You should restart your construction activities, economic activities, trade, and this is what they have been saying in regards to India. So this is where things get little bit complicated. India is set to head the Taliban's sanctions committee. That is resolution 1267. Right? Under resolution 1267 in UNSC, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed are designated terrorist organizations. Right? When the UNSC resolution 2593 was being announced a few days back, we didn't mention the resolution 1267. Right? It shows that India has a lot of concerns that are yet to be addressed. Right? Now, since the beginning of this endeavor in this Taliban and so on and so forth, India has been pretty much against it. India has been vocal against it. We have been very supportive of the governments in Afghanistan, and we have been very vocal in opposing Taliban. Right? We have viewed the group as a proxy of Pakistan and as an association of terrorist groups that specifically target India, and we have been saying that categorically, and our moves in international forums have been in that line. As far as the designation under 1267, this has been since 1999. And this designation list resolution has some of the top members of Afghanistan. The Haqqanis, the entire family of Haqqanis is in the list. The top leaders of Afghan government, the government that they are going to announce in the future, those names are there in that list. See, the current reality is every country in the world is willing to do business with Taliban. That is the harsh reality that is forcing India's actions in this regard. This is the editorial in the Indian Express. Now let us explore the editorial from today's Hindu newspaper. What is that? Noble intentions. Again, what does this talk about? This again talks about the adoption of UNSC Resolution 2593. As I said earlier, the resolution said we are condemning condemning the terrorism and urging Taliban to ensure human rights in Afghanistan. Remember, this was sponsored by US, UK and France and other 10 non-permanent members, but was opposed by Russia and China. The resolution addressed some of India's concern. What is the concern? You shouldn't allow Afghanistan to be used as a terror operating base for terrorist organizations against other countries. Second, we wanted safe passage for Indians, not only safe passage for Indians but also any religious minorities that wish to leave from Afghanistan. So this has been our pretty much standard template till now. This was also the template that we saw in the UNSC, which India kind of touted as a huge win, diplomatic win in international forums. Now, this resolution came at a point in time where 3 earlier discussions were held under India's chairmanship that kind of set out what we expect from Taliban in Afghanistan. See, whether, as I said in the last sentence in the earlier article, whether we like it or not, Taliban is the new reality. Taliban is going to form a government. Now, Taliban regime should have some expectations. So, India, using its diplomatic we using that UNSC as a forum, that resolution as a foundation, we set out some expectations from the Taliban rulers of Afghanistan. What was the importance given to? The importance was given to upholding human rights, to push for an inclusive government. What do they mean by inclusive government? Inclusive government means involving all stakeholders, the Tajiks, the Uzbeks, the Pashtuns, the Mazaris, all these ethnic minorities, ethnic groups, not religious minorities, ethnic minorities. The government should be inclusive of all these people. Also, we talked about a negotiated political settlement for the government and condemning all acts of terrorism, including the recent attack on Kabul, and prevent any future attacks and combating of the presence of UN designated entities. The resolution 1267 that we talked about earlier, the Haqqanis and other leaders of Taliban that are designated as terrorists under sanctions list. So, this is what the gist of that UNSC resolution was. Now, the author of this article has some criticism in that resolution, in that regard on the resolution. What he argues, or they argue, the author argues that it did not contain any consequential language that would give UNSC's stated intentions any real teeth. These things that were laid out in the UNSC resolution were merely looking like suggestions. There aren't any consequences attached to it if Taliban fails to oblige or fails to adhere to. But what is the problem here? See, this is a very early stage in scenario, very early stage in development. Taliban recently gained its power by dethroning an elected government in Afghanistan. It is very early to ascertain as to whether Taliban is following the commitments that the international community asked for or not. This is very early to comment on it. So, we cannot say whether they were violating the promises that they made or not, because this is very new and they haven't even formed the government yet. So, if in future, if things play out in a different way, UNSC can use its charter, chapter 7 particularly, chapter 7 mandate, which allows UNSC to maintain peace and impose sanctions on Afghanistan, a Taliban-led Afghanistan. So the author again criticized that the India Chade resolution does not contain any language that would hold the new regime more accountable. Again, the language, as we discussed earlier, though addresses all the issues, but stops short of identifying Taliban as the legitimate ruler of Afghanistan, does not contain language that would hold the new regime more accountable. right? There is a possibility here that the language is soft in this resolution because of the opposition from Russia and China. In earlier article, we discussed why the Russia and China opposed such harsh language in the resolution, because they wanted to keep their options open. After negotiating, after hard bargaining, after making all the complaints and watering down the language of the Unsc resolution, they abstained from it altogether. So that would be one of the possible reasons. What was the reason that they gave for their abstainment? They said that they didn't want any. They simply said that these countries pushed this, rushed this resolution. They did not address the concern of our concerns, Russia's concern, China's concerns. You divided the organizations into our terrorists versus your terrorists. So they said all these things. But at the negotiation stage, they made sure, or they tried to water down, and they succeeded in watering down the intent, the words, the spirit of the resolution. And finally, they bowed out by abstaining from voting. That is one possibility as to why the resolution did not contain strong language that would hold the Taliban regime more accountable. See, as I said, as I discussed in the earlier classes, the major tool that India has right now is the 1988 Sanctions Committee, that is the Taliban Sanctions Committee. India is supposed to chair that committee. Now, during this committee's meet, which is designated to meet soon, India must ensure that no designated leader of Taliban or their associates will be given access to funds, arms, that is weapons, or given permissions to travel until unless they show a commitment to international principles. They must adhere to international norms. They must adhere to the commitments if and when the Taliban regime takes power, and they must adhere to it. Until then, India must hold on and push back against these international rush to acknowledge and engage with Taliban. India must stand steadfast. India must stand against any pushback and hold Taliban accountable. At this point of time, in international community, it looks like India is the only country that is kind of putting pressure on Taliban. They need India's economic assistance. They cannot sustain on Pakistan for long. They cannot trust other countries. They need India's financial and economical support in order to sustain their economy. Right. So India must use this opportunity to ensure that no designated leader of Taliban gets the free goods that they would be given if every country recognizes them. Because at the end of the day, remember, most of them did horrible stuff to Afghan people. Not only that, they allowed multiple attacks to be carried out on soils of other countries that led to deaths of hundreds of innocents. So India must use, so that no leader of Taliban goes free, it must use its leadership and leverage to get what needs to be done. See, to all the skeptics that are saying India has no role in Afghanistan, that's absolutely not true. India has a future and a role in Afghanistan, but currently the scope is limited. The room to navigate and function is limited, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't has a role. It has a role, but given the climate of current geopolitics, because of our regional developments, because of the China factor, because of the untrustworthiness of Russian partners, we have limited scope to play. But that doesn't mean that India doesn't have any leverage in Afghanistan. Now, the decision to engage with Taliban in Doha must continue, right? We have to secure our own interests. There is a difference between engagement with trust and engagement with self-interest. What we need to do with Taliban is engage with self-interest so that we protect our own national interests and our population, all while ensuring that the rights of Afghani people are not trampled on. It must continue. We must continue to play a critical role in Afghanistan, in regards to Afghanistan on the world stage. We should hold the minimum standard that other countries are willing to look otherwise. So, These two articles are very important in regards to both the resolutions 1267 and 2593 from UNSC. To revise, these resolutions 2593, which sets the foundation for world's engagement with Taliban, was passed under India's leadership. It can be said that it lacks the substance, it lacks the teeth to get what needs to be gotten from the Taliban, but the reasons are evident as to why it couldn't be done. Russia and China are opposing it. These are the two editorials, one from Indian Express from yesterday, 2nd September, this from today's Hindu. Both are editorials. Hope you learned something new. Thank you. Stay safe. Namaste.